The Peery learning chart is a really powerful tool to help you learn accurately a piece from the very beginning. So in this video, I'm going to use the piece Gently Lift as my example piece. So let's say I'm starting Gently Lift for the very first time. The first thing I need to do is kind of determine how much I want to learn by the end of this week. I'm going to pretend I'm a brand new student, so I think just learning line 1 is enough. So I look at line 1 and I'm going to practice 5 days, which means I need to split line 1 into 4 different sections. So luckily for me, line 1 is 4 measures. So this means that I have to learn 1 measure a day. So the first step on the Peery learning chart is review the previously learned section. I don't have a previously learned section, so I'm going to skip that. That's why it's X'd out. The second step is to play the new section 5 times perfectly, with understanding the principle of go slowly or do less. So the way that you can always start something perfectly from the very beginning is that if you're making mistakes, you can either go slower or you can do less. So I always say to my students, you know, if worse comes to worse, you can always play one note correctly with the correct fingering, with the correct position, with the correct phrasing. Start with one note and then add on from there. So you can add on notes or add on speed. So I have the first measure. I can do it, but just know if you're a very beginning student, you won't be able to do that right away. And just start with what you can do perfectly and add on from there. The letters indicated in the boxes next to number 2, FERN, and then FERN stand for fingering, expression, rhythm, and notes. So the first time you go through the piece, I'm just going to do measure 1. I would make sure that my fingering is correct. This means that I'm using the proper finger numbers and I'm playing with correct hand position. So I might do a poor rhythm on that, or maybe even make some note mistakes, but the focus is on the fingers. And once I've done it with perfectly curved fingers and with the correct fingering, I can mark the F. The next is E, expression. In this piece, the expression is the lift wrist. So I make sure that I got that lift wrist. Now if I can play it with the correct notes, rhythm, everything else, great. If not, this is brand new, don't worry about it. The lift wrist is what we're trying to do perfectly at this point. R stands for rhythm. So this one, if I can play those 3 notes, excellent. If not, if that's too much for me to keep track of, you can always just clap the rhythm for this step until you can actually play the notes in rhythm. And then check off that box. N is for notes. Some people actually like starting with notes and go reverse. It doesn't spell a word that way. Or you could do Nerf. So you could just reverse it and start with N. I like fingers first just because it emphasizes the importance of that hand position, but you can do whatever is going to be motivating for you. So that's making sure all the notes are correct, even though I might be pausing or playing with flat fingers. At least I got the N right. All those notes were correct. I can mark that box. On the 5th try, it has the whole word, FERN. So I play it 1 time through and then I assess. So I happen to get the fingers, expression, rhythm, and notes all correct. So I'd mark off a slash on each single letter. The next step, step number 3, is find the metronome speed that you can play the new section perfectly. Now, especially in beginning lessons, beginning students, this can be very difficult. So number 3 is a step you can leave off, especially as you're learning the principles. We've already worked on rhythm in number 2. Metronome, we want to be doing it as soon as possible with the metronome, so if you can add it. So I would kind of be thinking of what speed I was doing. Let's try, I'm just tapping da, da, da. That's about 60, so I can try. And this is where I practice. If I couldn't do that, I would move it down until I could find the speed I can do it. If I could do it, I would move it up so I can see as fast as I can do it till I make a mistake. Then I would write that metronome speed in the box. Stitching is something we don't have to do on the first day. The second day, when we've done now, my first measure would be considered my review section on the second day, and then my second measure would be considered my new section. So on day 2, I will stitch first and second measures together. And I always write the metronome speed in the chart and in my music And then whatever, they happen to be the same for gently lift, but if they were different, I take the slowest speed and stitch it together using that speed and find what speed I could do the two measures together. And then the fifth step is to listen to a recording or to watch a video and listen to it that way. Just to get it in your ear a lot, and to also videos are great for watching motions as well. So like I said, going back to number 1, on day you don't have anything on day 1 for review, but day 2, you would start with practicing that measure 1 and go from there. So 3 times with the speed that you got for the last time. That's just by itself. By day 3, you're doing the stitching and whatever speed you can do perfectly. So it's basically starting at very small chunks, making sure you're doing it correctly, and adding on from there, being very aware of what speed you can do, where every step is correct, because we have to understand that as we are inputting information into our muscles, they're soaking it up and learning it right from the beginning, and anything we do that we want to change later gets permanent in our muscles as we practice. So the more information that we can put in there that's correct, the better for us. The easier it is, end goal. So the beginnings are hard, and it makes our ending much easier. I call it front loading the work. We do a lot of front loading in Peery, so very specific in the beginnings, and then we enjoy the endings.